Aloha, everyone. Well, welcome to Java. Thanks for joining me again. It is Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. And yesterday we had quite a move in the market. So, with our favored risk indicator, the MMRI up, showing that we have retraced quite a bit. We were hitting 330 earlier last week. It's still in extreme territory, but we've watched the 10-year yield as well as the dollar lose strength. And with both of those retracing from those levels markets don't like, they've both gone green, both futures and regular markets. So gold is still around the 2000 level, but the volatility index has retraced. We're also watching some strength come into oil again. There's some news in the energy markets we'll go over in a bit. So for the moment, sentiment is positive. It's risk on causing this jump in the markets, but we should expect more volatility tomorrow on Friday. We're going to be getting jobs numbers. So the Fed did pause in raising their interest rates, and people are calling it permanent now, saying it's definitely this hold will last, and that could be true. I think they've still possibly got some hiking if this inflation starts going out of control. They're waiting now for banks to normalize, uh, conduct the mergers that they need to, and I think waiting for a little more of a backbone system. We'll go over that in a moment as well. That's really the big news. We're going to be covering CBDCs and their advancements. We're also going to be covering the real star of the economy currently and how things are being affected with this. So, onto our calendar. Most of the numbers we're getting this morning are pre-market, other than the factory orders at 10. But tomorrow will also be pre-market numbers, mostly for employment. And that could move the markets tremendously, as that's the benchmark numbers that the Federal Reserve said they are watching. So here's one pick that we had spoken about. This was probably a month ago now, talking about Airbnb. So they had their earnings did better than they expected. However, their stock still dropped because they're looking at their demand going forward is dropping. And I think they've got more room to go because this kind of gave them a bit of a boost, not financial advice, but over this longer time period moving forward, talking about time periods probably by first quarter next year, that we're going to be watching more demand drop in this sector as well as travel in general. We've got the airlines that are already talking about demand dropping. So let's go forward with our banks and central banks news. They did rally, shares rallying and stock markets going up because they're all kind of cheering on the Federal Reserve holding their interest rate hikes. This is a very temporary thing at best, probably over the next week or two, possibly going into the Santa Claus rally that people expect through the end of the year, and then having sell-offs at that time. So now I want to cover basically CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies. Some of these stories, they've been popping up again today for a couple of reasons, but this has been in the works for some time. So wanted to bring this up because this is the newest. The Swiss National Bank, working with 6 digital exchange, that's the function, and 6 banks on a wholesale CBDC pilot. So this has been in the works for over a year. The 6 commercial banks that they're working with, Banque Cantonale Vaudois, Basler Cantonal Bank, Commerce Bank, and a couple of others, UBS. This pilot will be run from December 2023 to June 2024. So they're finally getting this kicked in along with this CBDC exchange. So this is, along with Cantonal Bank, this is basically they're going to be allowing Bitcoin on their exchange. And my apologies for my terrible pronunciations. But we're talking about Credit Suisse. Their intervention avoided a financial crisis. So this is kind of the back end story that is going to tie this in. And why am I bringing this up? This just came up. Swiss National Bank had to supply massive lifeline to stricken lender Credit Suisse after their collapse. So they injected 168 billion Swiss francs, which is 185 billion in US dollars, current equivalency, to keep them from basically crumbling. So what's really going on here is we're watching some of these banks are crumbling from within, and they're moving over to their CBDCs. Now, the point of these is the control and that they can move these faster, create liquidity. So along with this, we've got a couple of other stories, and some of these are older as well, but I want to point out a couple of things. One, Visa successfully concluding their CBDC pilot in Hong Kong with HSBC and Hang Seng. Now, we know these banks have been having problems as well. And this is how they're going to create this crisis and force this move over to the CBDCs. It's happening as we speak, but none of this is really being paid attention to because we've got war on the forefront of everything. So, and I'm not saying that the war is not important. All I'm saying is these stories are being lost. MasterCard also have their pilot achieving a breakthrough, and they're working with other banks. So we've got both these things all converging. This was back in October that they did theirs. So now we've also got New York Fed in this one launching their 12-week pilot program with major banks, but this was back in 2022. But the part that I want to point out on this one is that they were mentioning the ones they were working with, all of the same banks: Citibank, HSBC, TD Bank, Wells Fargo, BNY Mellon, US Bank, MasterCard, PNC, and Truist. But they're all powered by Amazon Web Services. Now, I brought this up before, how Amazon, when they're kind of growing their web services, this is their central information banking system. That is their internet. So basically, they are kind of countering Google, if you will. And it's who stores this information, who controls this information, is really going to be the powerhouse. So the whole point of Bitcoin and true digital currencies is that they are decentralized, not controlled by any one entity, and these are the opposite. I want to point that out. So moving on. With jobs, they're talking about how the job market is so incredibly strong. Private sector payrolls rising, ADP doing well, but on the other side, we've got, again, this is the travel sector, it's Delta, laying off some corporate workers in order to cut costs. But we're going to be watching more companies moving forward doing similar things. And when they start cutting their costs, we're going to watch the real jobs numbers decreasing. So payrolls, right now they're saying they're increasing, but they're not looking into the real story. A lot of these are part-time, lower-paying jobs. Real estate is facing some headwinds as they're watching they have a tremendous amount of empty buildings and just a lot of building that they had used to kind of bolster government-backed, but now they cannot sell a lot of these buildings. And we've got the meeting for Evergrande was pushed off to December 4th. So that's going to be a large date for them as far as whether they have to liquidate. We spoke about this yesterday. In the oil and energy sector, we're watching oil rising as the Fed keeps their rates unchanged. So the oil is going to go higher. Did have that correction the past couple of days, but they're talking about demand dropping, and it's not going to drop. We're heading into winter. We've got Shell just announced that they're doing billions of dollars in share buybacks. And we've also got significant growth in the coal sector. This is actually over in India, but I think it's going to follow through in Europe as well as North America. Significant growth in coal sector due to a rise in output of fossil fuel. So basically they're talking about an increase in demand in reality, because rise in output would actually cause a drop in this, but they're talking about a rise in demand, rise in output of production. So on to the lava updates. We've got the war updates from my side. Is the Pentagon announced their ICBM intercontinental ballistic missile launch. So they're kind of heating up these wars. Yesterday we were talking about the potassium iodide pills. Everybody's getting nervous about the nuclear Cold Wars again. And Putin revoked their side of the ratification of nuclear test ban treaty. Pardon me. So this is basically they're saying they're not going to do nuclear testing, but apparently near North America is, and so Russia will be as well. We've got to do one side, you've got to do the other, and we've got to keep in mind really behind this the alliances. And so with all of these things, we're going to see more control, more things going in, CBDCs, and the new alliances for these wars. So with that, I want to wish you all a green trading day, just a wonderful day in general. I forgot the link to the movie yesterday, so I'll put it in today. It's for the trailer. There is a free version, but it's terrible quality to the movie GATTACA. I hope some of you enjoyed that. Thank you for being here. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.